Hello, good morning, how you doing? It's Phil Thatch and I am at the Chickamauga Dam this morning, and today I have the Nikon 180 to 600 f5.6 to 6.3, and I'm on the APS-C Z50 or DX as Nikon people call it. And you know, as I've said a million times, I'm waiting for Nikon to put the new autofocus system from the Z8 and the Z9 and the ZF in an APS-C camera. And until then, I'm going to hold off buying any new Nikon cameras. And today I'm going to use this camera, and I'm going to do single point autofocus because it doesn't have bird eye detector. And I'm going to just move the focus point to the eye of the bird like we used to do back in the old days before people invented eye detect. But when this camera came out, there was not an awesome lens like this to use. So it should be fun seeing what I can get with this old camera and this new lens. I started out right down here at the fishing pier that you can see behind me, and there's a Great Blue Heron on the railing, and I made a number of shots with the Z50 and the 180 to 600. Let's check them out. Here's the Great Blue Heron that was on the handrail at the fishing pier. Just beautiful. This is kind of an extreme close-up shot, and for this shot I only used 500 millimeters of the 600 millimeter lens. Then I headed downstream a little bit, and as I walked down I saw this beautiful black vulture way up high on one of the power poles that carries the power all over the Tennessee Valley, and I headed on downstream from there. I've come downstream a pretty good ways from the dam. In fact, I've gone further down than the railroad bridge you can see behind me, and there's some nice grass growing along the shore here, and it flattens out a little bit. Closer to the dam it's really steep, but it flattens out here before it gets steep a little ways further from the shore. And there was a Great Blue Heron that was fishing right over here, and I got a nice shot, I'm pretty sure, with the morning sun hitting it and in the grass and in the water. So hopefully that turns out good. Man, I hate the batteries on the Z50. This thing's fully charged, but I call the battery strength gauge a GIS gauge, because you never know how much it's going to tell you it has. Right now it's showing in the red, but I just turned the camera on a few minutes ago, and that's been a problem with this battery ever since the Z50, ZFC, and I guess the same battery's probably in the Z30. I've never owned one of those, but that is one thing I sure hope Nikon fixes when they come out with their next APS-C camera. Put the big battery from the Z6, Z7, Z8, put that battery in there and things will be much better. Here is the Great Blue Heron doing some fishing there in the grasses right by the edge of the Tennessee River. Just beautiful. I got the morning light on it pretty good. I was really happy with this. There's a lot of bokeh-fied foreground grass that's kind of in the way of the bird, which I kind of might prefer it more if that wasn't in the shot, but otherwise I'm really satisfied with this one. I love to do osprey photography down here below the dam, but all the osprey have gone to wherever it is they go when they go where they go. Today's October 5th, and they are no longer around here. They'll be back next summer. I found a mockingbird, which I think may be the first songbird I've photographed with this new lens. And you know, I had the focus point right on the bird, was pressing focus, and the camera just couldn't figure out what to do. So I used my thumb on the manual focus wheel to dial it in. And it's a really small manual focus override wheel. It's kind of hard to get your thumb right on it, but I'm sure I'll get used to that, and it will become easier in the future. Once I got the focus relatively close using the manual focus override wheel on the lens, the Z50 took over and did just a wonderful job locking in perfect focus on the mockingbird. And this is the first songbird I've ever photographed with my new 180 to 600 lens. And it was just beautiful there on the side of the river, and I was glad I got a chance to see it and photograph it this morning. I ran into a pair of Carolina Wren that were hanging around right here along this concrete path, and I got a couple of shots of them. And, you know, and even doing it the old-fashioned way, putting the single point autofocus right on the bird, this camera, this Nikon Z50, in these, you know, when it's in a thicket, it just doesn't focus very well. You know, and people complain all the time about the Canon R7 struggling in low light. That thing is an absolute rock star compared to this Z50. But the Z50 is what I'm forced to use right now if I want to try out my new lens, so that's what I'm using. And as I always say, come on Nikon, make me a pro quality APS-C DX camera. Once you finally get the Z50 to lock focus, the 180 to 600 lens renders wonderfully. It's just a fantastic lens, and I really think it's underpriced at $16.99, or maybe all the competition is overpriced, but it's a fantastic lens, and I think it's going to be something that all Nikon shooting bird photographers will eventually buy, because it's just absolutely worth it. And eventually they're going to get an APS-C camera good enough to go with it. But for now, the Z50 is getting the job done. A little more difficult than maybe it should be, but it's doing well in the end. Now I've come down a little further to the boat ramp. There's a boat ramp just below the Chickamauga Dam. I hate this boat ramp. It doesn't have a dock. I mean, it does have this concrete thing that I'm standing on, but it's not really a dock. So back when I was boating, I never used this boat ramp. But anyway, right over here, there's a tree, kind of a dead tree sticking up, and there's a great blue heron there, and I made a few shots of it with the Z50 and the 180 to 600, and then it flew down. It must have seen from its high perch an injured bass, and it grabbed that bass and flew off. So I got some photos of it perched and some photos of it with the bass in its mouth. My shutter speed was too slow for birds in flight, and I was on silent mode to try to reduce shutter shock. So I don't know how well the picture of the bird with the bass in its mouth will come out, but we'll see. I thought the great blue heron was very beautiful, high above the Tennessee River in the branch of this dead tree. But it wasn't just sitting there relaxing, it was actively fishing. When it flew off, I thought I had spooked it, but I learned quickly that it didn't fly off because of me. It flew off because it saw this bass near the surface of the water, and it captured it quickly, and then it flew off and ate it someplace else. But I thought it was so cool that it wasn't just some garbage fish that it caught. It was a largemouth bass right there in the tailwaters of the Chickamauga Dam on the Tennessee River. I followed the Tennessee River Park path a little further away from the Chickamauga Dam. Right now I'm directly behind the Chattanooga State Community College, which has the college in that direction, and the river's over here. Lots more trees though. Didn't see much. Got another Carolina Wren, I think. Here is the Carolina Wren, a 600 millimeter shot with the 180 to 600 in a tree there behind Chattanooga State and right next to the banks of the Tennessee River. I found a mockingbird in really good light and made several photos, and then finally my battery that's been saying it's going to die any second all day died. Here's the mockingbird that I photographed in pretty decent light right there near the boat ramp downriver of the Chickamauga Dam. It was a beautiful bird and I was happy to photograph it, but once I got back to the car to replace my dead battery, I decided to call it a day and go on home. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you like the content. If you do, please take a moment and give me a thumbs up. If you want to see some more stuff like this, subscribe and hit the bell. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye from Chattanooga, Tennessee.